And good day, everybody. This is Marcel Portune. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. Very excited that you're joining us today. We have a jam-packed show as always. We're going to discuss the upcoming week of the NFL, and yes, we'll delve into the Pittsburgh Cleveland brawl that took place last night. And we're recording this on November 15th, 2019. So we'll delve into the NFL and everything that's going on there. We'll touch on college football. We're at the 75% mark of the regular season, so the college football playoff polls have been out, and I have some thoughts on that. We'll talk about Atlanta United and the conclusion of their season and the rest of the MLS playoffs and some off-season news there. And I think that's all we'll talk about. We may touch on some other topics as well as we flow through the show. As always, want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net. Premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. We haven't done a podcast in a long time, but our site continues to grow and evolve. So we have a lot of stuff from Atlanta United, from Georgia State football, their upcoming matchup against Appalachian State. We spoke with head coach Shawn Elliott for an exclusive interview, which we'll play a bit of on our show today. We also have Georgia Tech volleyball content up on our site later on tonight. So by the time you listen to the show, it should be up there. And we'll have some things from Atlanta Hawks as well, and the College Park Skyhawks, the new NBA G League team, the affiliated with the Atlanta Hawks. So we're able to talk to Coach Gillespie for an exclusive interview when they had their media day a few weeks ago. Their home opener is on the 21st, but we were able to go there a few weeks ago and talk with him. So make sure you head to the site and check all of that out. You go to Twitter and Instagram under Sports Inquirer, that's all one word. Make sure you follow us there and support it. Facebook, The Sports Inquirer, and Sports Inquirer. We still have the two separate pages. I just decided to keep both of them. It all shows the same stuff, so we'll just keep it moving there. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Inquirer. Every time we do a show, all of our audio interviews and video is usually up on YouTube. It's definitely up on YouTube and SoundCloud. So make sure you head to the sites and check those out. And that's the best way to communicate with us and everything that we're doing. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to go into the upcoming week of the NFL here on the Sports Inquirer Show. All right, welcome back to Sports Inquirer Show. Marcel Portune here with you. So now we're going to the Gridiron Blitz, where we break down everything going on in the world of the National Football League. If you're listening to the show, you've seen the brawl, all the events that took place in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. But just a quick synopsis of what happened. The Cleveland Browns defeated the Pittsburgh Steelers 21-7 on Thursday Night Football last night on November 14th. However, at the very end of the game, Myles Garrett, the defensive end for the Browns, was rushing towards Mason Rudolph, the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had grabbed each other. There was interaction on the ground, a little skirmish. Randolph was grabbing at Garrett's helmet, and Garrett returned the favor. Actually ended up ripping the helmet off of Rudolph and hit him upside the head with his own helmet. That's literally what happened. As far as the details, everything that happened, and then also that ended up leading to a skirmish where Pouncey, the offensive lineman for the Steelers, ended up kicking and hitting Garrett. He got a 3-game suspension. Garrett got the 6-game suspension. He's out for the rest of the regular season or indefinitely, and so that might mean some action in the 2020 campaign. I'm really not mad at suspensions at all. And then there was another lineman for Pittsburgh who got a game. Mason Rudolph did not get a suspension, which was interesting. When I first saw it, because he was involved in the interaction, was instigating it a little bit. Now, he didn't deserve to get hit over the head with the helmet, and he's very fortunate, and the league is very fortunate, that didn't turn into something more serious, or I won't say fatal. That's a little too much. But he could have got concussed. He already dealt with a pretty bad concussion earlier this season. He could have been concussed. He could have got cut. He could have, I'm sure he has a welt on his head at least. But the way that Garrett hit him on the head, it was very fortunate. It was there's a soft part of the helmet. It's kind of the base near the neck of the helmet. Hit Randolph, or hit Mason on the head. So it wasn't the hard part of the helmet or the harder part of the helmet. So if he hit that, he could have cut him. He could have knocked him out, and that would have been an even worse scene than what we saw in the contest. But Garrett, no excuse for that. I did try to look at it from his perspective and say maybe his helmet was being pulled on, and that could have led some instigated by the quarterback, and that could have got him going. But no excuse to hit him on the head. He took full accountability for it, and that's something I want to say you've not really seen before. I remember there was a brawl in college football with Miami and one of the Florida directional schools, and one of the Miami players he took his helmet and was swinging it at the college player, or the I think it was Florida International. So we have seen that before. That was a long time ago. That was back around the 2000s. But to have a player rip the helmet off, and then Lyle Alzado did that when he played the Jets in the he was part of the Los Angeles Raiders, back in the 80s, and he ripped off a helmet, I believe, of one of the Jets offensive linemen and threw it at Todd, who was the quarterback for the Jets. So he threw the opponent helmet towards the quarterback, but for a man to rip off the helmet of the opponent and hit the opponent over the exposed head of that same opponent, that was a new one. So I think that the penalty justified everything that happened, and it's just a very bad look overall for the league, and there's no excuse for what happened there. As far as the game itself, very uninspired contest. Cleveland, and the bad thing for Cleveland is they've won 2 games in a row. They're outside looking in on the playoffs, but look at their schedule. They can maybe get a few more wins going. I think this messes up their season in a major way. Garrett is maybe their best defensive player. So on the field itself, that's bad. But that's just negative mojo that comes from this contest. I think that they're going to be in some trouble. As far as Pittsburgh goes, they're kind of outside looking in as well. Their playoff chances were very slim. But now you have Pouncey, who's their best offensive lineman, and another one suspended, both of them at least for one game, and then Pouncey for 2 more games. And then you have a backup quarterback. I think Pittsburgh is in trouble as well. So that game, really, there was no winners in that contest. We'll go quickly through the rest of the week's action. That's going to take place on the 17th. Dallas is a 4.5-point favorite at Detroit. Problem with the Lions, no Matthew Stafford. He's out for another game. He missed his first start since 2012 when the Lions lost to Chicago. So it looks like Jeff Driscoll is going to get the start. I think this will be a prime time for Dallas to take control of the NFC East, or at least keep their stranglehold of it. Well, not necessarily stranglehold, but keep pace with the Eagles. That's what I'm trying to say. Dak Prescott, very strong performance at home, even with that loss to the Minnesota Vikings, 397 yards, 3 touchdowns. But for the Cowboys to do anything this year, they're going to have to improve the run game. Ezekiel Elliott, 20 carries, 47 yards in that loss to Minnesota. That's not going to be good enough. But I think even going to Detroit early game, I think the Cowboys will find a way to win this contest. New Orleans, 5.5-point favorite at Tampa. Saints, surprising loss at home to the Falcons. The 2 takeaways you took from the game. One, first game that Drew Brees has started at home for New Orleans, and they did not score a touchdown. The 9 points that they scored against the Falcons were on 3 Will Lutz field goals. So you can't expect that the Saints offense is going to have another low. Now, Michael Thomas did have a strong game, 13 receptions, 152 yards, but just was not able to find the end zone. Second thing from that contest is the Falcons came into that game with 7 sacks on the season as a team. They had 6 against New Orleans just alone in that contest. So New Orleans has to shore things up in that way. But overall, I think the Saints will find a way to win that contest. Speaking of the Falcons, they are a 4.5-point underdog at Carolina. As I mentioned, 7 sacks going into that game against the Saints, had 6 in that contest. Carolina's coming off a tough loss themselves as well at Green Bay. Got down to the very final possession. Christian McCaffrey stopped at the goal line in the final play of the game. Now, they still would have had to convert a 2-pointer in to tie that game and get it into overtime. But Carolina showed some moxie in that contest. Overall, you like what Kyle Allen is doing. Interesting thing about the Carolina, Cam Newton, I guess he's dealing with the foot injury. He does have to get surgery at some point. He's putting it off. I don't know what the story is there, but Kyle Allen has been serviceable at the quarterback position for them. Very tough to see the Falcons being able to put together 2 consecutive performances in a good way, especially on the road. So Carolina, I think, can win that contest. Indianapolis, 3.5 3-point favorite at home against Jacksonville. Jacoby Brissett should be back. Brian Hoyer started the game against the Dolphins with Brissett being injured through 3 interceptions. Vinatieri missed the 6th extra point of the season. Very bad late game possession for the Colts. But I think with Brissett in there, bringing some stability, that should be good. We're going to probably see Nick Foles getting his 2nd start of the year. Remember, he broke his collarbone the first start of the year for the Jaguars. So now he's back into the lineup. So I have to see what his health status is. Minnesota is a 10.5 point favorite at home against Denver. Kirk Cousins, got to give him credit, played well on national TV. That's been a big knock for him. And the reality is, this is only the 2nd win in the last 9 primetime games for the Vikings when they won at Dallas last Sunday night. And the first road win over a winning team in 2 seasons. So big moments for the Vikings getting that victory. And now they get to host Denver, who's struggling in their own way. You see the Vikings, as long as they give the ball to Dalvin Cook, 26 carries for 97 yards against the Cowboys, you use him in a consistent way. I mean, he's an NFL leading rusher for a reason. Give him the ball. Let's take pressure off of Kirk Cousins, and good things to happen for the Vikings, who look to be primed for a wild card spot, even though they sit only 1 game behind the Packers. Washington's a 1.5 point favorite at home against the New York Jets. Now the Reds, I don't say Redskins. It's hard not to say. I don't like saying the name, but it's hard to avoid it because it's the nickname of the team. But Washington, Dwayne Haskins is going to start for the rest of the season. Very smart move by Washington to do that. Got to see what you have in him, because they're probably going to be in the top 10 in this upcoming draft, and there are going to be some viable commodities at the quarterback position, from Joe Burrow to Tua to Justin Herbert, if you like him. And there's probably another quarterback that's always lurking in there. So good job by Washington to at least give Dwayne Haskins a chance. I think they can win this game against the Jets, who are very inconsistent, up and down squad. Did get that win against the Giants last week in the Battle of New York. But overall, going on the road, I think Washington could take that game. Buffalo, 6-point favorite at Miami. Respect to the Dolphins. They've won 2 games in a row, got that victory at Indianapolis. Flores is doing a very solid job coaching them. First road win for the Dolphins since September of 2018. So that was their first win away from Miami in more than a calendar year. I think they continue the momentum as far as playing well. Buffalo has to win this game to keep themselves in playoff contention. Desperation, I think, leads to Buffalo winning the game. Maybe the game of the day in Baltimore as the Ravens host the Texans. The Baltimore is a 4-point favorite, 5-game winning streak. Lamar Jackson completed 15 of 17 passes for 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, had a perfect passer rating in the win against the Bengals last week. Also had a career-long 47-yard TD run. So 2nd game this season that he had a perfect passer rating. First guy to do that since Ben Roethlisberger in 2007. So you have to look at that as a man who's a prime candidate for the MVP. And Houston as well. They had a bye week, but Deshaun Watson has played very well for the Houston Texans. And this is a game that I think comes down to the final possession. Houston's banged up. J.J. Watt, season-ending injury for him, so that really hurts them overall. You have to take the Ravens, and I mean, they're rolling right now. I think they're going to continue to use I like the tweak that you saw from them where they have Mark Ingram and Robert Griffin III in the backfield along with Lamar Jackson, kind of the Heisman backfield, 3 former Heisman Trophy winners. You put them there. A lot of passing capability, especially if you toss it to Griffin, who could throw it as well. I like the wrinkles that you're seeing in the Baltimore offense. And I think they'll be slowed down. They're not keep this pace up, and Jackson's not keep this pace. He's going to have a bad game or two, but this may not be the week for that to happen. So I'm going to take the Ravens to win that game. San Francisco, 10-point favorite at home against Arizona. Very tough loss for the 49ers against Seattle. Now, with Russell Wilson, he showed his value to the Seahawks in that win for 232 yards and a touchdown. But that Niners final possession in overtime, a little more than a minute left, had the ball deep in their own territory, 3 consecutive passes, only took about 10 seconds off of the clock, punted the ball, and Wilson was able to drive the team in the field goal range on the very last play of overtime. Seahawks kicked the field goal, game winner. If the 49ers took the tie in that contest, they would be 2 games clear of every NFC team with about 7 games left to go in the schedule. That means they would not have clinched the top overall seed, but unless there's a major collapse, you got to figure they at least get a bye. Now with that loss, their first loss of the season, not only do they put themselves of missing out on home field advantage potentially, but maybe not even winning the division because the Seahawks only have 2 losses. So I thought that was a very interesting move that you don't want to necessarily take the tie because that's the last thing you want to see done or a team is going to do. But to not have the chance to take advantage of the circumstances and take the tie instead of going for the win, I was intrigued by that. But overall, you have to look at this contest at home against Arizona. You have to win this game, and I think the 49ers will be able to do that. New England's a 3.5-point favorite at home. No, they're at Philadelphia, actually. So the Eagles they're both coming off of byes, and the Eagles are 3.5-point home dog to the Patriots. I'm going to take Philadelphia to win this game. A little slight surprise there. I think New England is susceptible to solid offense, as we saw that against Baltimore. And I know that statistically the first half of the year they're on a record-setting pace, but they face some inferior opponents. I think Philadelphia is a solid team. We need to run the ball a little bit more and not rely so much on Wentz. Now, Wentz is talented, but they need some more balance. I think they figured that out during the bye week, and I think the Eagles come out with a victory. Oakland, 10.5-point favorite at home against Cincinnati. Bengals have lost 11 in a row, lost to Baltimore last week. Oakland should roll in this contest. Rams on Sunday Night Football, 6.5-point favorite at home against Chicago. Mitch Trubisky, we've been very critical of him in the past. Played a decent game at home and a win over Detroit. 3 touchdown passes, no turnovers. That's what you want to see from Trubisky. The Rams are in trouble, now 5-4. 3 games behind San Francisco in the loss column in the division. 2 games behind the Seahawks on the outside looking in on the wild card chase. I think they're 2 games out of that. Overall, you got to look at this as a season make or break game for the Rams. I'm going to take the Rams to win the game because I don't trust Chicago's offense traveling on the road. But this is definitely a game that should be of heightened importance for the Rams. Final game of the week, the Kansas City Chiefs 3.5-point favorite against the Los Angeles Chargers. Game is at Mexico City. I think this is going to be a lot of offense. Defensively, both teams not inspiring much hope. That Tennessee loss that the Chiefs had in Nashville, I didn't like what I saw. They were up late in the game, mishandled the field goal snap to go up 8. Titans drove down the field with Tannehill, touchdown pass to Adam Humphries with 20 seconds remaining. Chiefs had another field goal attempt to at least tie the game, got blocked. Mahomes is going to do all that he can. He's going to put up a lot of yards. They're going to put up a lot of points. But the defense of the Chiefs, especially on the defending the run, very, very poor. And that's where maybe the Chargers with Ingram and their other running backs could take advantage of that. I think the Chiefs are able to win this game and get the victory. But many concerns for what you're seeing out of the Chiefs so far this season. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to break down MLS and the Atlanta United here on the Sports Inquirer Show. All right, welcome back to Sports Inquirer Show. Marcel Purtut here with you. Yeah, first show that we've done since Atlanta United saw its season end on October 30th with the 2-1 home loss to Toronto in Eastern Conference Finals. Let's hear from Frank de Boer, his thoughts on the loss and just what the team can go from it.
Quite well. And just told the boys, I cannot blame the guys, Of course, we have to make our opportunities, and we controlled, I think, 95% of the whole game, and 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 if you can do that against a side like Toronto, who wants to do pressure high up, and you saw already at the end of the first half, they were already, looking to the sideline. They had to drop more deeper and play more compact because they couldn't get the pressure on us. And so I was really satisfied. We had our chances, and of course, the penalty and maybe a red card. I don't know what the rules exactly are, but you see a lot of times they give a red card in that moment and a penalty, and now they give a yellow card. But when it's 2-0, they have to come more, and they made quickly the equalizer. And that moment, we control the game again, and I really believe that we're gonna make that goal. And one moment of a little bit lack of concentration. Darlington and Nagby was on the ground. People were thinking it's a foul. They didn't react well, and thinks somebody already could, make a smart foul at that moment to realize that, we were a little bit with much men in front of the ball, but still, they did the discipline, track back, and of course it's a great goal, but, it's the second time they shoot on the goal from distance and they scored, and that's very harsh, but again, I had the feeling a little bit the same against Dallas, we were losing 2-0, but I cannot, put the finger on it that, hey, this we did wrong. Yeah, we had to score, of course. That we did wrong. That's for sure. But for the rest, if you can control and play like this against Toronto's side, who was really, was moving up with his performance the last couple of weeks, and I spoke to the manager also, and he said, we didn't deserve it, but they're in the final, we not, and that's harsh again. And that's sport, and that makes it also the beauty of sport. It's part of life. We have to continue. We had a great season, and we wanted to end it not like this, of course, but it ended like this, and we could look back, I think, very proudly what we achieved.
And that was Frank de Boer discussing the end of the season loss to Toronto, and the Atlanta United actually had their post-season, well, not post-season, end of the season presser, talked to several players. Here is Brad Guzan talking about the season and if it was a success.
This season is a success. I think the long pause probably tells a bit more than what I could probably say in words. Yes, we won a few things, but ultimately in this league, the biggest trophy is MLS Cup, and we fell short. And so, when you look back at the season overall, it's, it was certainly a year with ups and downs, and we celebrated, winning 2 trophies, but ultimately fell short of the main one, the main goal, that was MLS Cup. So you hear the saying, you're only as good as your last game, and things like that. We fell short, so it leaves a sour taste in your mouth for the off season, and that's the reality of the playoff system, where you lose and you then have to sit with that for the next couple of months. And we want to be a team that is competing for MLS Cups.
So that was Brad Guzan just talking about being able to win the Campeones Cup and the U.S. Open Cup, but falling short of the MLS Cup. So I think it was a very good year for Atlanta. They won 2 competitions, flamed out a little bit, fell short in the CONCACAF Champions League, and reached pretty far in the MLS Cup comp playoffs. But overall, I think it was a solid year overall for the team. The offseason is in full swing right now. 2 big things to keep an eye on is the CBA, collective bargaining agreement negotiations are going on with that. And here is Jeff Larentowicz talking about where the MLS Players Association is and the owners and the league where the contract status is?
I would say we're following patterns of old. I think that from our side, though, I can't speak for the league. Our preparedness is there, and we have shown them on paper exactly what we want and feel is fair. And we're in a spot now where we're waiting to see from them.
Talking about
Not really, because, we've seen this before, so we as players are prepared for that. I think that we don't get discouraged by that. We know how they operate, and if they choose to operate differently, then that's great, and if they don't, it's something that we're prepared for.
So that was Jeff Larentowicz talking about the collective bargaining agreement throughout the offseason. We'll delve into that topic quite a bit. As far as Atlanta United itself, as far as player transactions, we saw the trade, in essence, of Darlington Nagbe to the Columbus Crew for international allotment money. So that was a tough move for Atlanta, and we'll break down that move and its impact on the team in the future. Julian Gressel, though, while he is technically under contract with the team, Larentowicz is a free agent, so that's kind of why I went a true free agent as far as that goes. Gressel is looking for an extension or a raise, things along those lines. So he talked about the contract negotiations with the team and how that's been going.
I say right now, I don't.
So when you say you haven't spoken, that means your agent or representative also had conversations with the front office about the contract?
They have, but nothing to a point where it was anything leading to anything. And that's what I was kind of alluding to with the frustrating part, where it kind of just was, in a way where, it's been difficult in that sense for me, and because, there hasn't really been any clarity in either direction, and we'll kind of see what the next few weeks or months bring.
When was the last conversations?
I'm not too sure. I think it was at the end of the summer sometime. So I think right around where we won the good August. Right around there where, kind of just didn't go anywhere.
Julian, is this?
I don't know. I don't, obviously the team can still, kind of see how, the years have progressed throughout this CBA and kind of just deal with that, and kind of just see how those things are going. But I'm not too involved with all the CBA negotiations, to be honest, so I don't really know where they stand and kind of what. Obviously, I'm trying to keep up with it, but I'm just more on the outside looking in a bit, where other players are doing that, and I'm sure the front office knows a bit more than kind of what the league has been telling him. But obviously, there's a certain rules that won't just go away, and they'll still be there next year. And if that's a factor, then I'll just, I haven't been told that that's a factor. So that's kind of all I can say about it. Well, that isn't the reason why I haven't gotten the deal, or why I haven't had any further talks with the club.
You wanted to, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I love the city, I love the club, but my wife and I, we love it here, and I just feel like it's time, where I can take that next step, and that's obviously comes in terms of being on the payroll in that way as well. And it's come to a point where I've produced a lot, I've played very well, and I should reap the benefits of that, and I want to do that. And if that's here, and if the club wants to make it a priority here, then I would love to be here. But if the club decides not to make me a priority in that way here, then I'd love to go somewhere where I can't be a priority.
And once again, that was Julian Gressel discussing his contract status with Atlanta United. We'll discuss that quite a bit through this offseason, which in essence kicks off this week because the finals of MLS Cup playoffs took place. Seattle was able to win at home 3-1 over Toronto to win the MLS Cup. So now that that's finished, the pretty much all through between now and early December is when you'll see some trades and other transactions and transfers. We'll be on top of all of that stuff. And then the calendar year turns into January, and you have the MLS draft. And Atlanta's going to play in mid to early February with the CONCACAF Champions League. So offseason is not very long, but we'll be on top of everything that's going on there and what's happening in the world of MLS. And then finally, let's talk some college football as we track everything that's going on here. Okay, we got a few minutes left. Yeah, good. So college football right now, we're starting to see the polls come out, not only your traditional AP and coaches, but now we're starting to see the college football playoffs start coming into form. I thought the LSU win over Alabama last week, 46-41, proved they're the best team in the nation. Joe Burrow, dominant performance, 393 yards passing, 3 TDs, also rushed for 64 yards. Clyde Edwards, 103 rushing yards, 3 TDs, also had a TD reception to add to his total yardage total, with 77 receiving yards. Overall, I think LSU defensively, maybe not the sturdiest team in the world, but offensively very tough to stop. And I think that score was misleading. I thought that LSU was a 2-point or 2 touchdown better team than Alabama. And the Tide, they made a comeback effort. Tua, I thought, played very well, all things considered. 418 yards, 4 TDs. Najee Harris, 146 rushing yards, and a touchdown on the ground for Alabama. They got that late touchdown. But overall, LSU is proving to be the best team in the nation. And they were the top team in the college football playoff rankings by the committee. You saw that Ohio State was number 2. Ohio State's a very interesting schedule. Still have Penn State at Michigan versus Minnesota most likely in the Big Ten title game. So we'll see what they're doing. Third place, Clemson. The ACC is not very strong. As long as they keep winning, they'll keep rolling and do what they're doing. The 4th spot's the intriguing spot. Right now it's Georgia, and the candidates I think are Georgia, Oregon, Minnesota, Baylor, Oklahoma, and even Alabama. All those teams have a solid argument for the 4th spot right now, but it went to Georgia. I think they looked at they're able to rebound. Well, they had a solid home win over Missouri. They were able to beat Notre Dame and also able to beat Florida. So you look at their schedule right now, it's probably the best out of all of the other teams within that 4th spot, as all that I mentioned. But Oregon's going to have their shot probably against a very solid Utah team in the Pac-12 championship. Minnesota, if they keep winning, especially if they get Ohio State, which will probably be undefeated themselves in that Big Ten game, but they win that, they'll be a playoff squad. Baylor, they're undefeated right now. They keep rolling. Probably have to beat Oklahoma twice to get to the playoff or to win the Big 12 championship to make their case for the playoffs. Not impossible. That can happen. And Alabama, they just have to win out and just pray. But they're lurking, though. And the weird thing about Alabama is that even if they beat Auburn and win out their schedule, and if LSU keeps winning, they're not going to play in the SEC championship game. But we've seen before with Alabama, them not playing the SEC title game and still make it into the playoff, and they actually won a title that won the national championship that year. So that's why you have to see Alabama as a potential team lurking there. And then looking around other local college football here in Metro Atlanta, Georgia Tech, they lost at Virginia. They host Virginia Tech this upcoming Saturday, tomorrow, on November 16th. Should be a very competitive contest there. And then Georgia State, very tough loss at Louisiana Monroe, not only on the field, or as far as the win and loss and the score, but they look like sustained some major injuries. Remy Lazarus, senior safety, and Dan Ellington, senior quarterback, and most likely the conference player of the year, both suffered knee injuries in that contest. I was able to speak exclusively with head coach Dan Elliott, and Shawn Elliott. He confirmed that they are most likely season-ending injuries, so we'll have to see how they handle that. But let's hear from Coach Elliott and how they can deal with those injuries to their star players and leaders on offense and defense.
Now, probably done for the year. I mean, to be honest with you, it's unfortunate. I mean, we got 3 of our 4 captains are out with knee injuries, and it just is what it is. I mean, you go and this time of the year, you got to fight injuries and you got to prepare, and that's what football's about. It's what sports is about.
We'll start with defensively. So Ed and now Remy are out for the year. Just how does that affect your defense just this final half of the year?
Like I said, I mean, we lost Jordan in the first game against Tennessee, so it's 3 good players for us from the defensive standpoint. First of all, we lose great leadership on the field. They've still been doing a great job in leading our football team off the field. But anytime you lose all that experience, it hurts you, and it's going to hurt us.
And obviously, with Dan being out, am I assuming Cornelius will get the start on Saturday against
at this point, he's been taking reps to do that. I mean, we've got other capable guys, but right now, Quads, he's running with the first team. We'll see how it all plays out on Saturday. It won't be anything that I have to do. We're going to have to protect the quarterback. We're going to have to run the football. We're going to have to control the game. Not put these guys in pressure situations where they've got to make a big-time player do something they're not capable of doing. So,
All right, and that was head coach Shawn Elliott for Georgia State football. They host nationally ranked Appalachian State. The match is for first place in the eastern side of the Sun Belt Conference. We'll be there for full coverage of that contest. Make sure you head to our site, thesportsinquirer.net, for all of the post-game interviews and pressers, including from Coach Elliott and some other players as well. You also go ahead to our site on Twitter and Instagram on Sports Inquirer, and search those all one word. Go to Facebook, the first Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer, the 2 pages there. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under the Sports Inquirer. We'll have a show up probably at the end of, we're recording this on the 15th. We should probably have something up on the 17th or 18th, recapping the weekend action in the world of football, basketball. I didn't even get to my thoughts on baseball as far as the Astros and their fiasco, and we'll delve into some more of that stuff on our next show. Until next time, good fight and good night.